Hello, everyone. This is Marilyn Turkovich from the Charter for Compassion. I'm the director. And as you know, this conference call has really been organized in a very short time. And we are definitely most grateful to our speakers who agreed to join us today. It is so interesting. I spent a little bit of time prior to the beginning of this call going over people who have registered. And while the majority of people are from the United States, we have an awful lot of people from Canada, from Mexico, from the UK, France, and as far away as Pakistan and Australia. And so certainly welcome to all of those people who have taken time, and some of you in a really definitely a much different time zone than our own. I believe that it's safe to say that we folks here in the United States are somewhat numb. Some of us are in shock, and many of us are dismayed over what has happened with our election, and there are still others who are very elated. We have called this gathering together to reflect on our personal feelings and to acknowledge them, certainly to listen to the concerns of others who are on this call, and most importantly, to explore the next steps for each of us and for the Charter. And I want to say that we recognize that what we hear today may really inform us not only on our immediate work, but may very well provide us a glimpse at how our compassionate cities may now take on really on new issues, and maybe even take on a new organization. Now that the election is over, each and every one of us has to make a decision to step up in whatever way we can to reestablish the norms of civility and respect. Several of our speakers that we have today have previous engagements, so we are adjusting our schedule to respond to their needs. However, first we want to start this gathering with an invocation from Hereditary Chief Phil Lane. Phil's an elder and a member of the Dakota and Chickasaw nations, and is a citizen of both Canada and the United States. And he is also a member of the Charter's Global Compassion Council. Brother Phil is also the founder of the Four Winds International Institute. And Phil has been very closely involved on issues of the environment and climate. Brother Phil.
Mitaki Epi, my very, very beloved members of the human family, I'd like to share a prayer and then a song and a few words. O Tunkashla Pila Makashla Michante Washtelo Tunkashla Wayanki Tunkashlo Yate Kilo Wakonakashla Anipi Kilo Wakonakashla Page Yuta Kilo Wakonakashla Human Family Kilo Wakonakashla, all those in the spiritual world Kilo Wakonakashla, Charter of Compassion Kilo Wakonakashla, International Compassion Games Kilo Wakonakashla, all those circles, all those relatives who are moving towards a new world civilization founded in the oneness of the human family, with the guiding principle of justice and the removal of all the illusions of prejudice. Kila Wakandakashla, Wakantanka, creator of the universe, most beloved one, all powerful one, most kind one, most compassionate, whatever forgiving one. Oh, most exalted one, remover of difficulties. We call upon your holy power, whatever names we might cry out to that unknown, mysterious force of love and compassion that brings us, draws us together, and changes and transforms all things. All those relatives in the spiritual world, they might come as they are already with us, but come and inspire us, infuse us with understanding at this very, very precious moment and the unfolding of the human family. And to gosh, we call upon all those tribes and nations of the east, from where comes the red sunrise, they might come together in unity and harmony. And all those tribes and nations of the south, from where comes new life, they may come together in unity and harmony. And all the tribes and nations of the west, from whence comes thunder, lightning, and rain, they may come together in unity and harmony. And all those tribes and nations of the north, from where comes the white snow, we might purify our hearts and minds at this time, so we might become one heart and one mind in many bodies. We might feel compassion and love and understand that nothing comes to us but our own perfecting in a more precious, more beautiful, more infinite way. And Takashi, we call upon the power of Father Sky, especially remembering what it is to be a good grandfather, a good father, a good son, a good uncle, a good husband, a good friend, a good human being, and especially ask on behalf of all the men who are walking upon the earth at this time, and those who walk before us, to please forgive us for our awkward ways that have destroyed so much beauty on this Mother Earth, especially for the mistreatment of women. Help us understand the eagle of humanity has two wings. One is man and one is woman, until both wings of that eagle have equal power and respect. The eagle of humanity will not fly as destined to its highest and most perfect and most exalted state of understanding and oneness and wisdom. To gosh, we humble ourselves at the time to our beloved Mother Earth. Especially give thanksgiving for our mothers, from whence we were given this beautiful life to live. A time when all those that have gone before them, all the visionaries, all the great holy manifestations of God would want to be here in this physical plane of existence, to be part of this great transformation, this great change, this great uplifting when we step out of our adolescence as a human family into our young spiritual adulthood. The day that will not be followed by night. And please, may we understand what it is to be a good mother, a good grandmother, a good sister, a good auntie, a good granddaughter, all those different dimensions, and especially remember that the hurt of one is a hurt of all, and the honor of one is the honor of all. And respect and honor our beloved mother from whence we stand, in whose breast we are nourished, from whence comes all things that we've been given to gift. We might come into harmony and unity at this time of great change, of great transformation. I'm going to sing this one song, one verse of this song from the White Buffalo Catholic. The words say, Wayankie Chinupakile Wakayalo. Wayankie calls upon, summons upon that spiritual power that surrounds all of us, each and every one of us. Then it says, what it's saying is the bowl of the pipe, that's the mineral people, that's sacred. The stem, the plant people, they're sacred. The animal people, which are a bundle, they're sacred. And you turn the pipe with the bowl up here, as a human being, we're sacred. All is sacred. We each are a sovereignty, ancient, imperishable, and everlasting. Wayankie, 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 Janupakile, Wakayelo, Wayankie. Wamitakiepi, my very beloved relatives, we are in the time not of prophecies, but the fulfillment of prophecies. And more than 500 years ago, across the Americas, there was, now we know, about 100 million indigenous people living here already, just like in other parts of Mother Earth. And we had a predestined meeting here because the world is round. That was part of a divine plan far beyond our understanding, because we must stand and understand that this moment we live in, this last 500 years, is but a breath of a buffalo on a cold day, or a firefly on a warm summer night, or the shadows vanishing before the setting sun. And so it was that our prophecy said that the union of the condor, the quetzal, and the eagle, which networked together the entire Americas and kinship trails and trade routes across the Americas, which now all the road systems in the entire hemisphere are based on, that this great union would be shattered, and a spiritual wintertime would descend for a period of approximately 500 years, as our calendars talked about and so forth. And there's different timings when this was to end. But for many, 1992 was a special year of the end of that 500 years. And as prophesied, we see this incredible transformation happening, historic events that unfolding. And I think it's very important to remember, and I want to share these words that I shared from our elders, shared that were passed on to me and just distilled and shared when these events unfolded of the last few days. I want to say that too, that very strange. My wife is my strength. My wife is my guide. My wife, as our beloved Mother Earth, it really nourishes my soul and my heart. And she has a very special gift. I'm not saying that she, the last person would ever say she did, but she told me 5 weeks ago, she said, Donald Trump is going to win the presidency by electoral college, almost landslide. And I heard her say that, and to be honest, I did not believe it. Then I arrived just 2 nights ago from Frankfurt, Germany, having gone to Marrakesh, Morocco, to initiate and light the global torch of compassion. And I stepped off the plane on election night, and she picked me up at the airport, and she said, tonight Donald Trump is going to win the election, a majority. And I said, well, we'll see how that unfolds. And of course, immediately as I began to watch the results come in, I saw, in fact, what she told me was true. And I want to say that nothing, this is just my perspectives, but nothing comes to us, I believe, except for our own perfecting. Everything that comes to us is for our own growth and development, is moving us further and further along this path to a new paradigm, a new, and I'm going to say this, and it has nothing to do with this idea of a new world order in which if few people in a secret society rule everybody, or where everybody dresses the same, or it's a result of an Armageddon that everybody's thrown into a hole and everybody else is saved and so forth like that. This is about something that our prophecies say is based in the understanding of the oneness of the human family. Something as at the core of the charter of compassion, the respect and love for all human beings. At that point, we know that it's important to understand that everything that's happening is for our good. So I just want to say this. When we ask the Creator for strength, we will receive tests and difficulties to make us strong. When we ask for wisdom, the Creator will give us many problems to solve. When we ask for great courage, the Creator will give us heroic obstacles to overcome. If it were not for tests, how would the courageous be distinguished from the cowardly? Without tests, how would the precious diamond be separated from the worthless pebble? For we cannot be a good leader of warriors until we have been in front of the fiercest battles and received the deepest wounds. There is no power in heaven or earth that will overcome our prophecies, our visions, our ceremonies and prayers. In our beloved Creator's own time, the 7th generation, fully supported by those that walk the red road before them, will ultimately spiritually vanquish and transform any materialistic forces leagued against the sacred truth and justice of our beloved Creator. So, you know, the world has been turned upside down in part this last few days. The whole apple cart has been turned over. And people, our relatives of the human family, are in despair. Some are thrilled and happy because they feel their cry, their pain, their distress, their separation has been answered in this election. Others feel betrayed. They cannot believe what's happened. But Mitakiyepi, I think it's very important to know that this is the time, truly, for compassion. This is the time. You cannot have compassion, you cannot have forgiveness unless things are done to you that you do not really deserve or feel like you don't deserve. I remember back in Bolivia, 1970, I prayed every morning. I was in the mountains of Bolivia there working with my relatives, the Quechua Aymara relatives, and I prayed every morning for 1 hour. I was in my spiritual honeymoon. I never thought that I would have a suffering moment again. And so every morning for an hour, I would pray to learn to be forgiving. And I really would intensely pray to learn to be forgiving. Little did I understand at the time, In order to learn to be forgiving, you have to have grave injustice done to you. Your heart has to be broken. And sure enough, after 3 months of intense praying, even the night before, an elder had done their best to dissuade me from having the gathering we're having with all these relatives from the countryside, all the Quechuas coming in who were being beaten up by union organizers and so forth at that time. But still, I said, no. I said, hermano, abuelo, grandfather, brother, we're going to have it at the center. And so sure enough, I was there praying, and a young man who was drunk, his parents had been one of the major abusers of indigenous people there, they'd done terrible things, came to our home and anyway, brutally raped my wife there. And she had enough wits about her after this brutal rape, because this man was so drunk, to get him to where I was. And here I was in the middle of my prayer, and I turned around, and here she came in. I could tell immediately she'd been hurt, really hurt. And I asked what happened. She said, I've just been raped. I said, you can't be kidding me. She took me in the room, and there was displayed all the evidence. And I came back out there. I'd vowed I'd never beat up another human being again, because I was not a very happy camper. I could have very well have been right into the heart of this anger and rage that you see in hearts of so many of our relatives, because of feeling helpless and hopeless, and feeling all these teachings they've been given, these false teachings about judging human beings for whatever makes us feel better or less than another human being. They're so full of it, and I'd been there if it wouldn't have been for the grace of the Creator. He gave me this spiritual experience back in 1968. And I remember he was probably in a blackout or whatever. It was revealed that, yes, he had done this, and I knocked him down. I just got on, and I was going to hit him, and I'll tell you, I would have killed him. And a voice said to me, and I looked at him, and I saw my face and his face, and the voice said, he's sick. I stopped, and I turned around to the relatives, the Quechuas who were there, and said, hermanos, ¿conocen qué pasa con mi señora? And I said, yes. I said, you know what happened to my wife? I said, yes, brother. They do this to us, to our wives in front of us. So the point of that story is this. If we have ever prayed to learn to be forgiving, to learn to be compassionate, to learn to have courage, to learn to have faith, because do you think we say we believe and will not be tested? This is the beginning of going through the heart of darkness, but beyond Mitakiepi is a most beautiful, a most wonderful birthing now into a whole new consciousness upon Mother Earth. So it's imperative from my perspective, this is just my perspective, that we do everything we can in our own self to clear away our own feelings so that nothing exists within our heart but love and compassion and justice. And understand that everything's on the table now. Everything that came out on this election and all over the world, the reactions to it, and the other standing rocks that are yet to emerge, the other dramatic shocks that are going to happen in this awakening process, that we need to be able to be compassionate, need to find the stillness within ourselves, and need to be able to embrace every member of the human family. That is a big challenge. But we have to know and believe, I believe with all my soul, that there's unseen hosts, powers, relatives who are waiting to rush to our assistance, and they will. No matter how bleak it might get, how many dark it might get. And so, those who have joined us, the beloved relatives who are with us in this call, I know maybe that we have this great disappointment. So I really say to you, with all my love and concern, go into the depths of your hearts. Let those tears flow down your cheeks. Let those sobs come out from the inmost chambers of your heart of all the pain and feelings you have about what's happened. Clear away the sacred flute of your being from the pith of self, so the sacred melodies the Creator might unfold the most beautiful melodies from your heart. And remember, if somebody has 10 bad qualities and one good, look at the good. If a person has 10 good qualities and one bad, look at the good. The way forward is to stand strong in our 16 principles for building a sustainable, harmonious world the elders unfolded since 1982. Stand, number 15 says, stand in the strengths we have. We have great strengths. in Thanksgiving. Move. Let us move together towards the positive alternative we wish to create, and do not give away our energy fighting the negative. Secondly, we know that the most powerful way to bring about change, and we've heard great spiritual teachers tell us, be the change you want to see, from Mahatma Gandhi, who led such a wonderful transformation, but really compared to what the transformation we're going through now, it's global, it's huge. But we are the curricula. It's how we walk. It's not books or videos or this and that. That's wonderful. That's great support. But it's our very spiritual presence of love and compassion and justice that embraces everybody, reaches out and shakes hands with everybody, embraces everybody with respect to culture. Because I know I just was in Marrakesh, Morocco, just days ago, where we launched the Global Compassion Torch, which has now been carried here to the American Indian Science and Engineering Society. It next goes to Panama, to the 7th Peace and Dignity Journeys, where young people are coming in. From 7 months they've been running for peace and dignity across the Americas, from the tip of Alaska to the tip of South America. And we're going to join in Panama. The Compassion Torch will be lit there. Then we go to Los Angeles to the Agape International Spiritual Center with our dear brother Michael Beckwith and Stevie Wonder and others. We light it there and join there, and then to Standing Rock. Eventually coming to the Giving Tuesday in New York City with the Y, which is a wonderful organization, but of 150 years of our Jewish relatives, and then finally ending up on the 10th, having a big Wopila, a global Thanksgiving ceremony on Human Rights Day. And then in February, we return the torch to His Highness Sheikh Abdul Aziz in the United Arab Emirates to finalize this year's journey of compassion. So I give you my love, I give my compassion to each and every one of us, and I have full and complete faith that the 7th generation, as prophesied, that arise, that more than 50% of our population is 25 and under, and they will, whether we see it in this physical world or spiritual world, they are going to manifest that most great peace that all visionaries, all poets, all of our great manifestations of the Creator have told us would unfold. So I thank you so much with all my heart and soul. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful work that you're all doing. Marilyn, thank you so much for what you're doing. Sandy, thank you so much for what you're doing. We really appreciate each and every person. And I just give you a great big hug, embrace here where I'm at, the American Indian Science and Engineering Society in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm here a member of the Council of Elders. And just as well, I'm so thrilled to be on the Compassion Circle Board, if we want to call that. And just, again, give you my very heartfelt and humble love and greetings. We say in my language, my name is Chinupasapa, my name is Shunkmano, and I stand responsible before the Creator for my words and my actions. One last prayer. Aid me, O my Lord, to surrender myself wholly to thy will and to arise and serve thee, for I cherish this earthly life for no other purpose than to encompass the tabernacle of thy revelation, the seat of thy glory. Hallelujah.
Thank you, Brother Phil. We're going to quickly move on to Joan Blades because she has to be on a radio program in a few minutes. And many people know Joan's name. She's a political activist, and she's best known as the co-founder of Moms Rising and Move On. And now she has co-founded another organization called the Living Room Conversations. And this has been done in an effort to bring both sides of the political spectrum together to discuss all of the issues that we have in a very comfortable environment, and hopefully in a way that welcomes everyone's conversation. Joan, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Well, it's not the talk that I had hoped I would be giving after the election, I admit, but this is the work that we have a set of partners left and right and center that are having living room conversations all around this country about many different issues. But for after the election, we have a very specific one. And the practice is just two friends with different viewpoints. Each invite two friends to join a structured conversation where everyone's agreed to simple ground rules. Basically what we all learned in kindergarten: take turns, be respectful, be curious, be responsible for your part of the conversation. And then going through a first round that allows you to start to hear people's deeper values, so that when you get to the content, you're really listening. Because once you like people, once you have feelings about their goodwill, you hear them differently. And then it's not a debate, you reflect and you go forward. And this has been a really powerful practice we've been doing for over 4 years now. And the president, after the election conversation, which is the one that is being highlighted now, this conversation allows us to start exploring what's next. Whether we feel elated or defeated, whatever our differences, let's insist on finding the deeper unities we can feel upon, we can rest upon and defend: generosity, goodness, kindness, freedom, respect, and certainly compassion. My experience of doing these conversations is coming to love people that have very different views than my own. And that last part of this introduction to the conversation was actually written by my conservative partner, who was reaching out the day after the election with concern for those of us that, essentially many of us are grieving right now. And we're looking for what we can do. And I can say there's nothing I know to do that's more healing than having one of these conversations with friends. And the reality is we are anxious going into this typically, but it ends up being uplifting and even fun. So I just want to encourage people in the Compassion Network to take a look. Living Room Conversations, it's self-facilitated. Everything you need is online. People are wonderful, honestly. This group knows that when we actually connect with each other's humanity. And that's one of the opportunities that Living Room Conversations offers. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share this. If those of you listening do try a conversation, it's open source. We're very grateful for people that get back to us and share their experience, because it's through this sharing that we allow this practice to grow and get better all the time. The intent is for constant improvement and greater community building. So thank you for the wonderful work everyone here on this call does. I am sorry I can't be on the whole thing.
But thank you, Joan. And people should visit the website. And do you want to just tell them a little bit about what they'll find there? Because there's really some great information. livingroomconversations.org. And up at the top, you'll see the topics. And if you want, there are little videos to tell you how to do it. But you print out a sheet and it tells you everything you need to do. And then, everybody's actually an expert at relationships. You know who a good co-host would be. And I can tell you also, I've had my friends introduce me to other co-hosts when someone thought I should know the co-founder Tea Party Patriots. And so I made that connection and had a wonderful conversation. Right. Thank you so much, Joan. I know that your call is coming up. So
thank you.
We'll say bye to you now.
Bye-bye.
Just before we continue, we want to make certain that you know that your voice is going to be heard. And so I'm going to introduce Reed Price, invite him to open his mic up so that he'll give us a little bit of information. We've had a number of people who have written to us prior to this call. And so I'm going to let Reed talk about that and then how others on this call can get involved.
So I think that the best way to participate, if you want to get our attention with a question or a comment, is to put it in the chat window. I see many of you are already doing that. If you are on the phone, or if you would like to, you can send an email to me at read@rveep.com, which is the same email that you got when you signed in, and we will pose those questions as we walk forward today. And we are also recording this call, and so we will share the recording to everyone who registered after we're done.
And we'll also share some links of important information that has come our way. And also, I think John Steiner, when he comes up, will talk about a co-sponsored event that the Charter is hosting on Saturday, and we are co-hosting another event on Sunday. So we will make certain to send you all of that information so you might be a participant. The next person that we've asked to talk with us is Reverend Dr. Joan Brown Campbell. And Joan is the president of the Charter for Compassion Board of Directors. And she's held a lot of positions with national religious groups and working with the likes of Nelson Mandela, Desmond Tutu, Martin Luther King. Joan was awarded the Walter Cronkite Faith and Freedom Award a number of years ago, which promotes tolerance and public dialogue on controversial issues. And she's published a book called Living into Hope, among others. So Joan is sitting in an airport, I'm not quite sure where, but she is ready to talk to us.
In Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C., okay. Go ahead, Joan.
I thank you very, very much for what you're doing here for our conversation. I think there's nothing more important right now than our capacity to listen carefully to what each person has to say, and not just on this call, but what I'm finding are interesting, powerful conversations. I'm privileged to be the grandmother of 9 and the great-grandmother of 1. And my grandchildren are my educators. They range in age from 16 to 35. And one, the oldest one, of course, having enough to give me a great-grandchild. And I've listened to them, and we've communicated hourly in the last days. They said to me, I'm 85 years old, and they said to me, Grandma, what does it feel like to you that when this presidency is over, you will be almost, this is one term of the presidency, you will be almost 90 years old. And it makes your last years very precious. This was heartfelt for me, but for really my most touching moment, one of my grandchildren is adopted from China, and she said with cry in her voice, Emma, when will they send me back to China? And it was in that painful word that I realized that the words that Mr. Trump has said have been listened to by people who took them perhaps more seriously than we did, and the threats that were set before us are dangerous threats. And they are affecting the thinking and the lives and the fearfulness of young people. So I can't think of anything we could do more important than try to make compassion a reality in our time. I'm thrilled by these phone calls that so many people are on, and people from around the world. And thank you for the first man's generous influence on us with what he said, enough for the rest of us simply to say, amen, this is what we must do. We have to be serious now about this. We have ahead of us a time of challenge. And I think for all of us, we were born to be people of challenge. It's not something we fear or walk away from. It's something that perhaps will give us a new commitment to being believers, and in what we believe, we will put our time and our energy and the sacrifices that are always required with all believers. But I'll not forget my little Chinese granddaughter and the very real fear that listening to words like, you know, maybe we should send people back to where they came from. And we have to realize that some words that have been said are words of fear. And I think it is our task as people who believe in compassion, not to pat them on. I get very upset when I hear people say, it will be all right, it will be all right. And I think our challenge is not to say it will be all right. It is, we will make it all right, because it is who we are and what we do and our commitment to freedom and to justice in this land and in every land. If we recommit ourselves to this, then we have to know and believe that the energy of compassion, the energy of sacrifice and commitment can in fact carry this nation forward. So we look at this as a time of struggle, because I, like Nelson Mandela, when I think of the struggle, Dr. King, the people that I've been privileged to know, they never gave up when things looked tight and tough. They simply said, we must work harder, we must dig deeper into our own souls, and we must give our time and energy, and yes, our dream of compassion, which has never been more needed than it is in these days. Thank you so much. Marilyn, thank you for putting this together. Thank you to everyone. I wish I could see the faces of everyone who's on this call. I'm especially grateful to people who are here, who have stayed up late at night, who are coming from countries far away from where we sit here, and for the fact that the world cares. They are not just fearful of what we're doing. They care what we are. They care who we are. They care what we do. We're a nation of power. And that should not give us pride. It should give us command to say we are to be loving and compassionate and care-doing people. That is the call that I think is before us. And thank you for this opportunity.
So much, Joan. We're going to turn your mic off only because we're hearing the announcement for the next flight. But one thing that I'm reminded of, in several of our compassionate cities in the United States, there is something called the Red Bench. And the Red Bench is an opportunity for people just to go and sit there and invite conversation with other people. It's a very small act that could be done, but certainly one that you know, is a spirit of healing, and an opportunity for compassionate listening to take care of. And I'm hoping throughout this call that we'll have an opportunity to give other ideas. John Steiner is the next person who is going to address this group, and we've become great friends with John Steiner. And he is what I would call a super networker. There is not, I don't think, a day goes by that John isn't introducing the Charter for Compassion to another organization. And so he is certainly a catalyst for bringing about change. He's one of the founders of the Bridge Alliance, and it's partner to the Charter for Compassion. And along with the Bridge Alliance and the work of the civic and compassionate communities in Utah, we will be co-sponsoring an event on Saturday. So John, I hope you talk a little bit about that. And he has just been very closely tied to our compassionate communities and cities in the United States. Actually probably going to visit more of them than we've had an opportunity to do. And he's also helping us in a new venture now with our fundraising committee. So I'm going to turn this over to John, and I have a feeling he's going to give us a lot of networking ideas.
Thank you, Marilyn. Before I jump in, how much time should I give myself on this?
5 minutes or so, John?
Well, first of all, thank you and Reed. It was wonderful meeting you guys in person on Bainbridge Island a few months back. Chief Lane, how moved we all are. Delighted this is going to be online. For those of you who can't see, I'm wearing my Living Room Conversations hat. That's only because I have a bunch of acupuncture needles on the top of my head and it looks a little weird, which I won't show you. And Joan has been a dear friend and colleague for many years, so it is just really a treat to be here. I'm going to speak for a few minutes with my transpartisan hat on, which is how can we and will we, and thank you, Joan, for turning this into the positive. How can we and will we heal across the partisan divides in this country? We can be a transpartisan Democrat, transpartisan Republican, transpartisan Independent, transpartisan voter, non-voter, libertarian, green, anybody, as long as we choose to come to the same table with civility, respect, and compassion to listen and learn, and really learn how to work together and solve problems. So that's kind of what we mean by transpartisan. And I'm going to read from a friend of mine in Boston, Brian Clancy, what he wrote yesterday, because I think it holds at least what I'm feeling, and I'm hoping what you'll feel, and it'll be the context for two suggestions I want to make. I really think this outcome validates the need for an authentic new path in American politics. Lunging from right to left is what we've been doing for 30 plus years now, the very period in which the American dream has dangerously eroded. This is indeed, as many have said, a test, and a profound one, but also a profound opportunity. The big challenges fracturing our nation remain beyond the capacity of any one side to resolve unilaterally.
John?
I'm convinced that forging a transpartisan vision and roadmap for renewing the American dream is an essential component of the civic renaissance for which our country yearns. So to me, and what really has excited me from the moment I heard about the Compassionate Cities Project and the communities that so many of you represent, is how the compassionate communities and this transpartisan meme might work together. So as Marilyn mentioned, on Saturday, I'll be in Salt Lake City with my colleague, Mark Gerzon, the author of The Reunited States of America, How We Can Bridge the Partisan Divide. And between 3:30 and 5, he'll be hosting a conversation with a leader from a Republican, a Democrat, an Independent, and two folks from the civic community in Salt Lake talking about what's next. How can we come together? You guys having trouble hearing me?
I beg your pardon. This probably is going to be a whole lot better. Do I need to repeat anything that I said, or did it get through a little?
It would be helpful for you to talk a little bit more about the work that you're doing this week, so that there's some clarity about how people can join in.
My apologies for thinking that the speakerphone was going to work. So I'll be in Salt Lake City this weekend with my colleague Mark Gerzon, the author of The Reunited States of America, How Can We Heal Across the Partisan Divide? And Mark will be facilitating a conversation on Saturday afternoon that will be live streamed and recorded. And Marilyn is putting this out, but one can go to the Utah Citizens Summit and the Salt Lake City Civil Network to find it. And we'll be asking the question, what's next? How can we come together as Americans? And our hope is that other cities and other facilitators will take up that call wherever you live, whether we do it in libraries or living rooms, in public venues, whatever. And that we begin to really consciously bring together Democrats, Republicans, Independents, people we don't talk to in public spaces, to begin to get to know each other in ways that this election clearly shows we don't. And Hannah Arendt, the great German-American philosopher, said years ago, democracy needs a place to sit down. We've lost our public spaces. And my prayer is that the Compassionate Cities Network can become a major leader in reintroducing public spaces back into our country and reaching out to people that we don't know, that we disagree with, and the divides, as we know, are not just political, they're economic, they're class, they're racial, they're urban and rural. But what we know is that when we sit down together and get to know each other, what Joan has said as an experience, things change remarkably. And then on Sunday, Stephen Dinan of the Shift Network will be hosting another remarkable online event, which will be recorded, called A Day of Healing and Reconciliation. By the way, our event is going to be between 3:30 and 5 Saturday Mountain Time. And Stephen's event will be between 1 and 2:30 Mountain Time. And to learn more about that, you can go to dayofhealing.us. And when you go online with the Utah Citizen Summit, there's a place to register if you want to begin to have these conversations. My dream and belief is that actually we have a new constituency in this country that we have not catalyzed yet. And to use William Urey's language, the author of Getting to Yes, it's a third side. It's a new constituency. It's not a political party, but basically it's anyone and everyone who, regardless of ideology, temperament, disposition, wants to collaborate together. And I really see the Compassionate Cities Network as a host for doing this. And Marilyn and Reed, I think these are conversations we'll continue to have in the next weeks and months, and we'll beginning to post because there's so many. There's an impulse around the country for this kind of healing and outreach and recreating our bonds of trust and affections as Americans. And we're going to need to know who's doing what, the Compassionate City effort in San Antonio. And how do we learn what others are doing and what touches us? What's the right thing for each of us to do? So why don't I pause there and just say thank you so much for including us and bringing this transpartisan meme into the heart of the Compassionate Cities communities and vice versa. Because without civility, respect, and compassion, we can't learn to get along with each other.
Certainly, on the report that we'll be sending out along with the recording from this call, we'll make certain that people have the correct links so that you can tune in both on Saturday and on Sunday. And, you know, for people who are on this call today, if you are not part of a Compassionate City movement, a community movement, we really invite you to go to the Charter for Compassion pages, look at the initiatives under communities, and see if your community, your city is listed. If not, let us know, because we would love to work with you to begin a movement within your city and your community. And, you know, as John has indicated, you know, each of these cities has a way of bringing people together, whether it's in Seattle and there's a movement for working with youth and in working in healthcare, working to support a just wage, or as was indicated in San Antonio, there's so much work on dialogue, both at the interfaith level and the civic level. If we were in Fayetteville, Arkansas, you will find a movement that's really involved deeply in conversations that are for the good of the community across racial barriers. And I could go on and on, from Louisville, Kentucky, to Detroit, to New York City. And as I said, New York City, I was just wondering, Reed, if you see Marie Roker-Jones yet? She was going to be a little late because of another meeting.
We just had somebody join us on a call on a phone. I don't know if that's her.
Okay, let's see if it is.
Who just joined us on the phone here?
I'm Kathleen Dean Moore. Sorry to be so late.
Kathleen, how wonderful for you to accept this invitation.
Thank you for setting it up.
Okay. You know, people who know anything about environments, essays, and writings might know the name of Kathleen Dean Moore. She has been a wonderful friend of the Charter. And just within the last couple of weeks did one of our global reads, which are, we pick 4 books a year. and have an opportunity to meet the author and to hear from them and to entertain questions. So I'm hoping, Kathleen, that you could spend a few minutes and let us know your feelings right now. We've been kind of talking about next steps that we have, and I know that there is serious concern about the environment and backing away possibly from some of the agreements that we've made environmentally. So can we hear from you?
Yes, of course. No, I am quite conscious that I'm coming in on a conversation that has been going on for some time, and I don't want to repeat what's been said. So let me just very briefly tell you what I'm doing today. Is that all right? I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. Yesterday was a disaster for me, but I know what I'm doing today, and here's what it is. I have a Hillary sign in my front yard, and I've been wondering what to do with it. And so here's what I'm going to do with my sign and with every other sign that I can find as I walk through this town. I don't care if it's Trump's or Hillary's or something else for the yard signs. I'm putting a notice on it, and here's what the notice says. In this, I owe some gratitude to Charles Goodrich of the Spring Creek Project for helping me with this. Dear friends, in the sorrow and bewilderment after the elections, we vow to redouble our commitment to work for social and environmental justice. We stand with activists who will now be called to new levels of courage and determination. We stand with honest journalists and courageous truth-telling. We stand with brave scientists and reality-based decision-making. We stand with thought leaders and a vibrant, trembling moral compass. We stand with all defenders of the integrity of the natural world. We stand with our neighbors, international students, LGBT community, people of every color and ethnicity, as we stand against bigotry, injustice, and moral violence in every form. This election is not a defeat, it is a call to action.
Great. I was going to say it fits in very well with what we've been talking about. So continue, please.
I would only continue with another sentence to say that I think that it's time to simply take a simple stand and to say, for this day, this is what I am pledging. This is what I believe in. These are my allies. This is my determination to go forward. That's, I think, the preliminary then to figuring out exactly how, but I'm, at least now I have my arms full of these signs, and I can walk my neighborhood with my head up. That's all.
Great. Kathleen, is there any chance that you might be able to send that on to us and we can include it in the report?
Sure, happy to do that.
Okay, thank you so much. For people who are seeing a screen, you see two women sitting together in California, and I'm going to turn this over just to hear from Sande. I don't know if she's prepared to say anything, and then to make an introduction. And Sande Hart is the person who is leading our Women and Girls Coalition or sector with the Charter. So, Sande?
Thank you, Marilyn, and thank you everyone who has spoken. I'm deeply moved. I think I can speak for my sister here that we're both deeply touched and inspired today. My name is Sande Hart, and I serve the Charter for Compassion and leadership of the Women and Girls sector. We're one of 11 sectors at the Charter for Compassion, and while women and girls issues are threaded through all of the sectors, ranging from environment and education and healthcare and restorative justice and so on. We are a place within the Charter that is specifically for those organizations. We actually have our own global task force. We have copied over our partners that still exist in those other sectors, but they also live in the women and girls sector. And with me today is Sonali Fiske, who is one of those, represents two partners of the Charter for Compassion Women and Girls sector. And so we were here meeting on another reason for business, and it made perfect sense that she be here. And to speak to one of the things that women and girls are committed to, and that's mentoring young women into leadership, which I think we all feel, especially today, is one of the most important things that we can do, and not just leadership, but technology and and STEM and so on. So I've had because of my role here, I've had the blessing to speak to women all over the world. Particularly yesterday, I was on with 4 different countries, women in 4 different countries, and some of those calls had 4 and 5 women in them. And while we're all feeling rattled by the news of today and yesterday, while we're all feeling mourning and deep sadness, we all agree to the same, we all had the same sensory expression of pain in our womb. We all express the pain in our womb. And whether that's figuratively or physically in the area of the womb, we all went there. And we, rather than it being pain for us, like Chief Bill has reminded us, this is more of a contraction pain. This is more of a sign that things need to change. Things are changing. We can expect that the baby's coming. And how can we be the best midwives of this time as possible? And it is our biological innate imperative as women to rise to the tensions in the world in a different way, and not a better way, but definitely a different way that serves our communities from a place of compassion. And that is just the natural fact. So you can find us at thecharterforcompassion.org under Women and Girls. And we invite you, if you are with an organization that serves to improve or advance the condition of women and girls, or if you know of one, or if you're simply a woman who wants to convene with other women on this, with the common thread of compassion, please join us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So is one of these other green telephones that we see, is it Marie?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let me take a moment and introduce Marie Roker-Jones, who is from New York City. And Marie has been one of our lifesavers in helping us, along with another charter partner, Louisa Hex, from a London-based organization called the Forgiveness Project, in setting up compassionate conversations. And they've done them online, and they've done them personally in New York City and a couple different locations. And Marie is the senior editor of the Raising Boys section of the Good Man Project, and she's the founder of Raising Great Men. So we've asked Marie if maybe she could give us some insight into her own feelings about the last few days, but as importantly, to give us some thoughts about things that can be done. Marie?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Marilyn, for asking me to be part of this. And I'm so inspired by some of the others that I've listened to. I was on I realized I wasn't on as a panelist before. And when you asked me to speak, I had to think about what I wanted to share today, mostly because I was going through, there were so many different emotions I was feeling following this election. And one of the things, as a mother of 2 boys, as a woman of color, I wanted to step away from my views and better understand the view of someone who is a Trump supporter. And when Louisa and I started Compassion Convos, it was from our own personal friendship, working relationship developing, in which we created opportunities for each other to be honest and transparent about our views, and to help each other better understand things from a different perspective. So I needed to do that because my first reaction was, to just feel some type of resentment toward and judgment towards those who did vote, particularly those I felt were friends. And so I had to step back and say, why would somebody vote for Trump? And what I did was I reached out to someone to find out why they voted. And the conversation that developed from that was her being real with me about the issues that were important to her, and me, and I explained to her, and I can't even speak, and I explained to her how I felt. And one of the things I did say to her was, my son will never be treated the same way your sons are treated in this country. My son will always be seen as an outsider. And right now, this just amplifies that feeling and that concern. Particularly my oldest son, who's in college, was very upset and just distraught over this. And I wanted her to understand too, not just from, personally for me, but other people, people of color, indigenous people, LGBTQ, Muslims. I wanted her to better understand that what we were feeling right now. And this isn't about you personally as a Trump supporter. It isn't about Trump. It's about all of us. We're all in this together. And if we can't come together, if we can't see from each other's point of view, there's no healing. There's no moving forward. And in back and forth, in communicating back and forth, she finally said, Marie, what can I do? And that, to me, summed up what Louisa and I, the foundation for Compassion Convo. Not just to talk, but to get somebody to take the next step. What compassionate action can you take based on your views? And I have to be honest, if I'm feeling a certain way towards the Trump supporters, towards Trump and his cabinet, does that make me any better than them? No, it doesn't. So I have to take a step back and look at myself, look at my own thinking, and help others to see where I'm coming from and understand where they're coming from. And when she said that, that was the best thing she could say to me. What can I do? It wasn't that she was changing her mind, but she was validating something for me. And we're now talking about what can she do? What small thing can she do on a local level, on a personal level? How can we start to create change? And I think we're looking at this from such a we're looking at this with the big lens and saying, let's start to do this and that. But maybe it means just starting with one person. Maybe it means extending just your hand, a word to one person and saying, I want to better understand and I need you to understand me. How can we work together? And just that small act can make such a difference, because next week I'm going to have another conversation with another Trump supporter who extended the same thing. So I think while we can be feeling that this is really a challenge for us, it is a challenge, but there's hope. And we have to start looking at this from, individual, how do we deal with people and how do we work with people individually, and how do we move them to taking action and then moving it into the community and the cities. But we have to start somewhere, and sometimes it means starting with one person. So that's what I'm doing, and we're going to have compassion. We're going to have convos here in New York City, but I'm really making it my effort and my mission to talk to people one-on-one, because I do think it makes a difference.
Great.
That's it.
Thank you, Marie. And that reminds me of the day after the election. I can say that a majority of my time and conversations were spent talking with people from the Muslim community and the kinds of things that were happening. It almost appeared that in certain parts of the country, maybe throughout the country, that there was a license to really act out against Muslims. And so, I think for me, one of the first things is exactly saying, what can we do? And, how can we stand in communion with you, if I might use that word? So I just would remind us all about our Muslim brothers and sisters. The next thing I thought about were all the people who I know who are here illegally and what they must be feeling, and the conversations of comfort, I hope, that we might be able to introduce to those individuals. And again, asking the question, what can we do, but also what will we do on their behalf. Reed, I'm going to turn this over to you because I'm looking at the chat line here, and it is very long, and I know that we also had a lot of people who wrote to us previously. So do you want to take it over?
Yeah, there are some great comments and suggestions that are coming up in chat, and I want to assure everyone who is on the phone that many of these links that you've heard about we will include in the report that we send out, and we will do that as quickly as we can so that you can catch up with many of these events that are coming up as we work to respond in the wake of this election. Beth Grossman suggested that we might want to look at Rabbi Michael Lerner's article called Stop Shaming Trump Supporters, which is in Tikkun, and we will, there was a link for that, which we will send along. And Therese Hartwell suggested, what if we start a letter writing campaign to our president-elect, sending him love letters that make it clear that we reject the hateful attitudes expressed in his campaign, but we love and feel compassion for him as a human being, and love it as his core is what we lift up to him to take actions and lead the country in a way that treats everyone with love and compassion. Jerry says, a question for the webinar. This country is divided in half. What we know about Mr. Trump is that he is what we know because he's told us numerous times. We don't know why so many people supported him, but what strategies can we develop in terms of genuinely reaching out to those who experience such despair so deeply that they would vote for dramatic change at any cost? And this is somewhat what Marie was just talking about. I don't know if there's, if any of you on the panel would like to respond to how to reach out, how we might begin those conversations with people who are Trump supporters. I know that that Marie gave us a note, but John, you have your phone up, so I'll unmute you.
I'll send this to you. Pat Goodell, who's been a long-time pollster, sent out an amazing piece the day before the election, really getting underneath what most of the polling has done to get at the Trump constituency and who they are and why they are and what they are. That is not about bigotry or xenophobia or racism. And we don't, and just as an aside, we don't know the percentage of Trump voters who fall in that category, but I'll send that to you because I think it may be something we want to include in the report.
Anyone else who would like to jump in here? Kathleen, I saw your mic light up. I'll mention another thing, which is Sari at the URI North America says that at URI they've begun compiling a list of interfaith events that are happening to heal our divided nation. If you know of events that need to be added, please please email us at northamerica@uri.org. North America, one word, at uri.org, and you can also obviously go there to find out more.
And we'll put it on the report as well.
There's a question here about what we can do how can we trust our world will be safe with a leader who we think might bully, name call, stay uninformed about issues like pollution, global warming, child rights, women's health and rights, education, healthcare, the list goes on and on. How can we trust that our world will be safe? And how can we be a light in the darkness? Anyone care to respond to that one?
I would like to. This is Sandy. The first thing that came to my heart when that question was asked was it has to start in our families. What we can do is we can grow our children. We can look at what Raising Great Men. We can look at the Million Mamas movement. We could look at what organizations, what partners of the Charter for Compassion are doing to create a more compassionate household so that these are not acceptable behaviors. It has to start at home, in our opinion, and as well make your voice be heard. find out in the community, find out what it means to be a leader of your community, whether it means getting on your school board, whether it means shadow following someone at the city council, attending the meetings. Become politically engaged and know that your voice matters, and step into that leadership. Soon, and you'll have to check our website, we'll be doing, Sonali will actually be leading a webinar on how to step into that leadership. But if of course you don't know where to go. But I sense some of you do. So ask yourselves, what can I do to get more civically engaged?
John, were you going to say something? No? Okay.
Nothing more now.
Okay. I saw someone else's light on the panel go up.
Phil.
Was it
Phil,
Phil?
Chief Phil.
Yes, yes. You know, we need to really stand in our strength here and move towards the positive alternative which we wish to create. That's what our focus is. We have the gift of the chart of compassion. We have the 16 principles for building a harmonious, sustainable world. We have many spiritual guidance that is telling us where we need to go. That's our focus. Giving away or fighting the negative is just not going to at all support what we need to do. The fact is, we are going through tremendous challenges ahead of us. This is just the beginning. And we have to be able to really understand that, for example, you know, my dear brother has been trying to say for 35 years, Anangak from Iceland, the fact that already runaway climate change is happening to Greenland. It's going to melt, no matter, there's nothing we can do at this point. We have to then focus on what it is before us and focus on those things. We have to be able to find that spiritual center and to really take that fear away. We are going to come out of this. There's absolutely no question. We are going to emerge. We are in the springtime. During the first beginning of springtime, all that snow begins to melt. If you were only living in wintertime, you'd think it's the end of the world. It is the end of the old paradigm. It's dying. But we can hear also, we have to listen for the birth cries of the new, not get hung up in the death pangs of the old. Every place, everywhere, there's things to be thankful for. That's why we're having this global Wopila on the 10th. We've got to be able to look at those things. I don't say we have to, but that means we have to grieve. We have to do some grieving here, because and the tears aren't the pain. The tears are releasing the pain. This is an incredible challenge we're in right now, and the fact is, this is where we don't know. We just do not know. This is where we have to become severed and free from all except the Creator and take action, unprecedented, unified action. And stand up, even if the tears are running from our eyes, even if our heart is broken, and step forward and walk the spiritual path with practical feet towards exactly what the compassion, chart of compassion tells us to do. We have the guides. We have what's needed. Now it's our total and complete dedication to walk that spiritual path. With no vision, the people perish. We have to be able to get that and move forward. It's an incredible time. It's a great time. Yes, and some will go to the next world, possibly myself. We don't know. Now, there's not any chosen elite here. We are going through this incredible transformation, this incredible birth. And I'm not a mom, but I do know that I've been when my children have been born, and we're just beginning the labor pains, just beginning. So get prepared, be ready. But it's going to be an incredible journey as long as we can just keep focusing on the positive.
Ann Collier and many of us here, Chief Phil, say that we are so grateful for your strength and conviction, just coming off the chat there. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I also would mention something that I've heard from Reza Aslan about the idea that when people are referred to as, or when actions are referred to as reactionary, we should remember that it's a reaction to the change. In other words, as Brother Phil was just saying, we're coming away, we're going into something new, and there are people who are concerned about what that might mean, and so they're fearful. And so really, escalating the anger is not a good way to put them at ease. And if we can find ways to bring light and love into the conversation, if we can try to connect with what it is that's behind that fear, maybe we will be in a better place to try to make those connections that seem so difficult right now. Stephanie Warfield wrote, "My husband is a Muslim and just became a U.S. citizen finally, after 8 years of long struggle. He got to vote in this election and has been very hurt by the results. He's fielding questions from his friends in Iraq. They have fear that the U.S. will take their oil fields. He is leaving today for Baghdad to talk to friends and family in his own compassionate way." Anne writes that writer Charles Eisenstein calls this challenging space the space between the stories, the story of people and narratives of civilization. The old story he calls the story of separation, and the new story, the story of interning. So we're all interns in this new world.
I think both Reed and I are trying to go down quickly through what seems to be an endless number of messages that we have here. And one thing I'm just always reminded in my early Adlerian consulting groups that we were always trained to use the word I. And so often as we talk with people, we don't use it nearly as much. I'm feeling, this is why I'm responding in this way, and then asking the appropriate questions. What's going on with you? What is your thinking? And not to make our tone accusative as much as inviting.
So another suggestion, I have a correction here from Anne. She said that it's not the story of interning, though I did my best with that. Interbeing.
Okay. So
the new story is the story of interbeing. And although I think interning might have some role as well. A suggestion from Susan, could we create a national monthly vigil for at least the first year of the Trump administration? I know there are many, many vigils that are happening around the country, some of them more peaceful than others. Any thoughts about vigils and meditation and ways that we might be able to come together on a regular basis that might be healing in our communities?
It's a good idea, and something that certainly we can get out to all of our compassionate cities. We have 197 compassionate cities and communities in the United States, and we have 10 in Mexico and a significant number in Canada, and we're in 50 countries. And so, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could bind those vigils and that meditation, and there would be a time that would happen across all of the time zones. One thing that I thought of is that whenever something good happens, that we make certain that those love letters or those letters of gratitude and appreciation would be sent out as well. And I think that I want to go back to the person's concern about, perhaps the cabinet and Mr. Trump being so close to, really acting out in a way that we don't want things to happen. And I think that also is a message. It's an opening for us to let our voices to be heard through our senators, our local Congress people, especially by, in going to asking for town hall meetings, getting our voices heard. I think maybe my response is out of the 60s and 70s, where I might be more inclined to take to the street with a banner to let people know what I'm feeling. But, how can we continue to make our voices heard is really very important. So, Reed, have you had a chance to see some of these other ones?
Yeah, I'm wondering if John might talk a little bit about the Bridge Alliance and the work that's being done to try to find that third way that it is not an abrogation of either view, but more a search for common ground.
Thanks, Reed. I would just add, Marilyn, you mentioned the Bridge Alliance also earlier. Folks can go to bridgealliance.us to see the close to 50, mostly national organizations who are involved. And I'm also thinking of this because I think there are different organizations there that are going to resonate with different folks in local communities in terms of local actions. But I think what we're trying to do is to figure out how to aggregate this constituency, which we believe is in millions of folks who want to work together across the divides. And Marilyn, what you just said, and from one of the last chat offerings, I think this notion of vigils in which truly everyone is invited, and that we really see the cross-section of this country in compassionate communities around the country, in nonviolence, with love, with encouraging the better angels of everybody's nature, could be a remarkable response to what we're all experiencing. There's so much anger and reaction that's going to happen from the progressive community. And to have that be available with love and compassion and inviting people who are feeling all the feelings that one would naturally feel given what Trump said during the campaign, to be together differently. And I can't think of any other group in the country that can do it other than the Compassionate Cities communities. And I think it might take a little time to organize it, maybe to bring a design team together with some of the leaders of different communities and talk this through about how to do it in a way that would really touch the country's heart.
I think you're absolutely right, John. We sent out an email yesterday to our leads in the way of volunteers and our staff, and to say, you know, we have to be open to a new way for the United States Compassionate Cities perhaps to be reorganized, to be part of a task force, to have individual cities take on the role of responsibility in certain areas. So we are we're planning that this will probably just evolve from not only from this telephone call, the other calls this weekend, and the work that we'll be continuing to do in the next weeks. Reed, I know that we had a couple questions that were sent in prior to this, and I'm wondering if we want to ask them at this point. We're just about 6 minutes away from the end of the call, but if we could acknowledge some of those questions, it would be good.
Yes, I did mix them in a little bit, but here's another one. One of the things that seems to have happened is a denigration of reasoned speech. When there's a disavowal of evidence and more reasoned claims, how can compassion find common ground? A question about language and communicating when it seems as though the language that some people are using is unhinged from reality.
I wish the person who asked the question would answer it.
Yeah, I guess that if I were asked to come up to respond, my feeling would be that we need feeling. My feeling would be that we need to communicate, as you were saying, about I statements about getting away from arguing over the facts of the matter and try to get to the emotions of the matter, get to the heart of the matter, literally, and find out what it is that is causing that the pain or the anger or the frustration, the anxiety. And maybe if we look to connect in that way, we could find some common ground. If we are throwing arguments back and forth about what is reality, well, we've seen how it works because we've seen it on the national stage for the last year and a half, and it does not find resolution.
You know, I've been thinking about the hometown from which I originally came, And it's a small town in western Pennsylvania. And steel town, a lead mill, and the first atomic power plant. Those were the big industries. Those industries are all gone. The people who were a part, who worked in those plants, no longer have jobs. They are probably somewhere between their 40s and their late 50s. And they are the people, along with, if we look at other communities in this country, who are facing a reality of thinking that they're going back to those jobs that they once held. They're not there. So that what we're dealing with here are people who still think that this is going to happen with a Mr. Trump. There's going to be a resurrection of a new steel mill. It's not going to happen. The coal mines are not going to, probably be the way that they were, even though there's a promise that it would be different. So, I keep thinking about these people who have a story that is really very, very sad, because I remember the other night Tom Brokaw saying that he visited some of these communities and he saw people struggling who were in their 40s and 50s trying to learn computer mechanization. And it was so difficult for them because they've come from another world. So what we're looking at here is really trying to find ways of people to be involved in work that hasn't been created, but can really be work that many people in this country need to do. I think that's also part of this big dialogue, that there's a need for innovation and creativity that is something that we haven't even thought about yet. Well, thank you so much. We're 2 minutes from the end, and we certainly want to honor the time that you have. I think we have a lot of wading through here because people have offered us all kinds of suggestions of further reading, and some organizations. I even saw quickly that there is someone reaching out from Cancun, Mexico, for being a compassionate city. I'm going to make that invitation to people on this call again who would like to have a compassionate community in their city. Please let us know. We will begin the process of working with you. It's not an easy process, as many people will tell you, but it is very much rewarding. And I really want to thank everyone today, the panelists who came to this conversation with a very quick turnover of an invitation, and to all of you who signed up. And if you give us just about 24 hours or maybe a few more hours over that, we will be certain to get this out, but certainly before Saturday, when it'll be time for you if you want to participate in the Utah Summit, followed by the Sunday conversation that'll be streaming in from Washington, D.C. Thank you all, and hopefully you'll join us again on our next conversation. Bye.